I feel like we're all just like cheetahs ready to pounce on a gazelle.
Let's try. Let's try.
A wounded gazelle, because I'm not that fast.
I'm not either. I'm a big guy. I'm more about sprinting than marathons for sure.
Maybe a baby gazelle that's also been
Actually, I'd
wounded.
rather not. I'd rather not sprint either.
So maybe a gazelle wandered into my sleeping area as a cheetah.
If a gazelle just happened next to my office chair here, I would beat him with my beer bottle.
I was actually yawning and it jumped in my mouth, and
Right.
that's how that one went.
What
Yeah,
is
they do.
going on here? Whenever I answer the phone, I'm like, "Hello."
What pissed you off?
It's a great argument to have.
I love my mom, but I think she's half crazy for doing that.
How dare you?
Do you work with your girlfriend, Mark? Or your wife, Mark?
I keep them separated. Sometimes I call people, they don't answer the phone. I'm like, "F them."
Wrong number, click.
Well, he's not that smart, but sometimes he sounds like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Go.
But therefore, you're an ass, and I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Yeah, but what do we know?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to What Do We Know? I'm Mark.
I'm
I'm
Jeff.
Mike.
I'm Jeff.
All right, good times. We're off to a great start.
Hell of a start as always. First thing we gotta do, as you can see, we have a new overlay going on.
I
JC
can't
Green.
see that.
You can't.
I
You guys
absolutely-
can't see it. I can see
No,
it.
I
It
can't
looks
see that.
beautiful. You guys will see it when the video posts, though.
All right, well,
Okay.
JC Green, I'm gonna hold my thank you until I see it live.
JC Green.
I don't want to jump to any conclusions about how good it is.
It looks beautiful.
I'll jump the gun. I'll say thanks. Appreciate
All right.
any fan participation, unlike Mike, who reserves his praise.
Only
Or
when I
whatever.
feel you deserve it. Right. You're not gonna get it until you deserve it for sure.
So, anyways,
Well,
guys,
thanks.
it's been a while since we've been together, the three of us again.
That's right.
Yes.
Jeff, you were on a trip.
I was in London for 10 days.
Oh, you left America, you traitor.
I did leave America. I left America twice in the last couple months. Like I went to, France, and then I went to England this last time, and it was fun. It was good.
I have a serious question before we get too far off track. Did you have any tea and crumpets?
I did not have tea and crumpets. I did
What is a
have.
crumpet?
I don't.
That's the
I,
real-
I don't know. I didn't even see those
biscuits are
advertised.
good.
Actually,
What, Mark?
The biscuits are cookies, basically, in Britain.
Well, then
What
what's a crumpet?
Probably like
A biscuit?
cookie with jam.
Ham?
I said with jam. Cookies with
oh,
jam.
cookies with jam. Why would you put jam on your cookies? You
I
put
know there's some cookies with jam on it.
you'd put jam on a biscuit, like an American biscuit, not an English biscuit.
I thought you said ham, and I thought we had like a Canadian bacon kind of
You
situation.
don't have ham with your cookies? You're missing out, Mike.
I do
What a-
put ham on my cookies,
Come on.
actually.
Just make
Ham
a,
on everything.
a ham sandwich with cookies as the bread. Slap some mayonnaise on there. Like nothing like a good chocolate chip cookie with mayonnaise, mustard, and ham.
Oh, if that's what's
Delicious.
happening in London, I'm on the next flight out.
So, I will say one thing that was very strange about London to me. London's on the metric system.
Mhm.
Yet they talk about everything dealing with cars in miles. Everything's in miles per gallon. They talk about how many miles it is to get someplace, and I was just like, but it's like kilometers per hour and kilometers to get somewhere, like on a map. And they're like, yeah, we just like the way miles works better. And I was just like, that's odd. They
It's kind of odd.
they talk about themselves in height. They'd be like 5'10". I'm like, why are you 5'10"? That's like not metric at all. It just sounds better.
So they're
It
like
sounds easier.
they're like a weird hybrid.
They are. They're very much a weird hybrid, and they measure themselves by weight. Guess how they do weight?
Stones.
Stones.
Yep, they do. They do weight in stones.
Yeah.
I did. Somebody told me that he weighed like 12 stone, and I was like, how big are stones? Like, I have no idea how I'm comparing this. Like, I didn't know what a stone was, but everybody
I
talked
don't know
about
what that
stones.
means either.
It's about 14 pounds per stone, I guess. Why they weigh themselves in stones, I don't know. mixing then with miles per gallon in a kilometer area, and they drive on the right side of the road. Why? That doesn't make any sense to me. It's like them
Japan
and
does.
yeah,
All the cool kids do.
it's all the cool. It's like only England and Japan that do that anymore. It like doesn't even make sense.
Well,
So-
the thing is, I know they have a tunnel that connects them to France, so basically the rest of Europe. So I always wonder like what happens like underground,
Yeah,
like
where
through
it
the tunnel.
merges.
Do they switch over, or like you forget.
Yeah,
you
I
gotta
don't know.
remember.
I have no idea if it's like you come out one side and you have switched over with the other lane, or if you have to. There's a switch that happens at one of the ends. I have no idea.
Or it's like one of those RC cars where you like switch cross.
When they talk about zippering into merge, it's just like hoping
Yeah,
you
yeah.
don't get hit, zipping by each other.
You know, and every once in a while, boosh.
Can you imagine that crosswalk that exists right there for pedestrians? It's just like I don't know what to do.
So actually, I kind of have a fun fact about a kilogram, which is sort of loosely related. The only reason you know what a kilogram equates to, like how we know that unit of measurement,
1,000
It's
grams.
1,000 grams.
but the gram is divided by what a kilogram is, which is like something. Maybe I'm way off base on this, but I remember watching something about this. There's actually one thing, I can't remember if it's a rock or it's a piece of something that is like the actual measurement for, it's either a gram or a kilogram, that's locked in a vault somewhere. And due to like time decay, probably what we actually measure as a kilogram or gram is not the same as it used to be.
So I know like kilometers has to do with basically the length of the equator of the Earth. So that's, while not 100% consistent, it's something that we can, base a distance of measure against. So I would
Right.
imagine that a kilogram be some kind of thing that happens naturally in Earth environment or whatever that we base this measurement on, like maybe like a meter worth of metal bar or something like that.
I wish I would have had the foresight to look this up before we started recording, but I know there is, it's a way to measure. It's either kilogram or gram that is actually
Okay.
like there's a organic object that is the basis of that weight measurement, and it's just kept in like an airtight.
So,
thing.
but
See,
where did this object come from? Is it one of a kind? Did they just pick this one of these things out of like a pile of them and were like, we'll go with this as the kilogram from now on?
You guys are going to have to give me time to look that up because I don't remember.
well, I would think they would use something like, I don't know, a mole worth of oxygen or something at 1 atmosphere of pressure. That would make sense for like a gram, or
So it is
that's how I
the
would do it.
it is the International Prototype Kilogram, and it was commissioned by the General Conference on Weights and Measures. This is a kilogram, and it's in the custody of the International Bureau of Weights and Measures.
Okay, but what is it?
Hold on.
A kilogram, Mark.
It has been
It's a
found to
dog. His name's
That's a
Fluffy.
dog.
Based on the dog.
it's been found to vary in mass over time. So what we actually consider a kilogram fluctuates all the time.
But that takes away the whole concept of like a kilogram.
Math.
Do
Yep,
you
it does.
remember, Mark? We used to work at the electronics firm together, and they would sometimes send our equipment out for that we used for measurements for calibration.
Yeah.
It always makes me wonder, like, what happens to the calibration equipment? Like, do they send that out to another place for like the calibration of the calibration equipment? And like, where does the
It just-
chain end?
It's like turtles. It's just calibration all the way up.
It's, but it's gotta like there's gotta be the end all be all somewhere. That's the
Oh, yeah,
final
there's a bar.
calibration.
There's a bar in France that's determined to be, this is a meter. This is the meter bar. And that's what they base the meter on.
Wait,
Which
it's in
I still
it's in
think-
France?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, because that's where like all this stuff comes from. Is from France. But I
Actually,
think
Mark,
technically it has to do with the circumference of the Earth at the equator.
I was just going to say, Mark, you talked about that being like a kind of set measurement. It
Right.
says this. I lost it now. What was it called? the International Prototype Kilogram. It's the only base unit that is directly defined by an artifact rather than a fundamental physical property that can be reproduced in different laboratories.
Oh, so the kilogram's the only one that's
Yep.
a possibly fluctuation. So now the question: look up while you're looking this stuff up. Look up where a pound came from. Did that come from a measurement, or did that literally come from like a kilogram times 2.2?
I was going to say, I think the pound is just a variation on
Well,
that.
the pound came before the kilogram, so
Hold on.
the pound. I think the pound had to do something with, of course, a pound of silver. So maybe a certain amount of silver. But then you go into like, well, then how do you measure that if you don't have a? I think somebody just maybe set a coin. This coin is a pound.
I don't know. I have no idea. I've never thought about looking this stuff up before.
They used to weigh things like with barley corns and stuff like that. Like basically you grow some kind of product and then you weigh things relatively to that or something like that. Relative to that.
Right. So basically what it says is when you talked about how the pound existed before the kilogram. So the pound just referred to coins at some point. And it became a unit of weight because of that. Now, today, the most common way to define a pound, it's legally defined as exactly 0.45359,237 kilograms.
So they've gone back to this kilograms,
bananas.
which they've already determined is an arbitrary number.
Is an arbitrary number, yes. When I saw this thing, that's why I remembered it, because it kind of blew my mind. I'm like, wow, I never really thought about what weight was before. But it's such an arbitrary thing that it changes all the time.
Well, here's two things that I always thought was really weird. Is that we had like a measurement of an inch, and it had something to do with the length of the tip of the thumb or something like that of the emperor of the time. I was just sort of wondering, how do we get a 12-inch foot? Like, I don't know exactly how big your feet are, and maybe your feet are much larger than mine, but like mine's about 10 inches, and I think that's more the standard. So I was wondering, like, we got our standard for sized feet by a king who was like, the size of Shaq or something like that.
Yeah, I have no idea. I know that they used to, like, you talk about the emperor, that they used to measure things. Like, one of them was the measurement from, like, when he was holding out his hand from the end of his fingers to the tip of his nose was, like, some type of measurement. Yeah, but then they standardized it at some point. I just didn't realize they standardized it in such a weird way. But then, I mean, look at time. Time is based off of, like, there's a couple ways for it. Like, one's dealing with the atomic clock that does, like, geo stuff with the earth. One of them's like quartz crystals and the way that they like vibrate and all this weird things. Back in 2006, was it? We had to add 2 seconds at the new year to like re-equate back down to like being officially like at the right time or something like that. Like, because it doesn't match up with the way that the earth revolves around the sun. And
I'm almost positive we just had another leap second.
Oh, did we?
Yeah, like a week ago or something.
I didn't celebrate my second. I try to do something special with these seconds because in my mind, they don't really exist. So anything that happens in this time, like, it's like free. I mean, can you really tell me what time it was? Like, if I decided to go like murder a man during that time, an officer can't really put an official time on there because what time was it really? I don't know.
Go ahead, Mark. I think you're going to say the same thing I'm thinking.
Well,
murder's bad. Yes, I understand.
Yes, murder is awful, Jeff. You shouldn't be doing that. No, like, we had this huge thing when we were younger about Y2K and how it's going to blow up the computers because of the leap year. I mean, the year changing to the year 2000 and not having enough digits and all this stuff. Is all these leap seconds and stuff programmed into computers? Because I don't think they are, and I don't think it makes one iota of difference.
That's a good point. Well, you know what? They could be now though, because you get updates for your operating systems all the time through like the internet. If you're connected to the internet, you're gonna pull this update. If you happen to have a computer that's not connected to any of the outside world, yeah, it's probably behind. Remember they extended
behind.
Well, remember when they extended daylight savings time? And
Right.
that first year that they did that, like Outlook calendars, I remember because I worked at a facility that used Outlook. Outlook calendars were jacked for 3 weeks because there was no way to like implement. They weren't prepared to change something like that with the way that the Outlook calendars worked compared to the actual time. There was something really messed up with that. That for 3 weeks, your Outlook calendar, you had to look at it as an hour off because there was just no way for them to fix it in time.
Time is just like the kilogram, where it's an arbitrary number. Like that's a man-made thing. If you're on a planet that's a little further away from the sun, like our system of time doesn't make any sense at all.
Right, because Pluto hasn't had its first year since it's been discovered.
Right, exactly.
So
Go
I was
ahead.
going to say, explain that to me because time, and it's in a lot of movies about like time travel. I remember probably the first movie that I saw that involved this concept was The Navigator. I don't know if you guys remember the movie The Navigator from like our childhood, and the guy doesn't like age at all near the end of the movie because it's been like 4 days to him, but it's really been 4 years on Earth or something like that, and it's because of where they're going.
Right.
Time still is happening outside of where I'm at. The same amount of time has ticked by whether I'm sitting here or if I'm sitting on Jupiter. In my like mind, like I can't. Maybe I'm not sitting on Jupiter. If I'm looking at Jupiter right now, it's still been a couple, 10 seconds since we talked about Jupiter. No matter where you're at, how does this work? That it's only been like 1 year, and what you're saying that since Jupiter's existence.
Well, because a year is just a unit of time it takes you to rotate around the sun.
That's not true. A year is 365.25 days.
On Earth,
What's
yeah.
a day? On Earth, it's one rotation of the Earth.
But using time as a constant, like just as a unit of measure from
Time
start
is
to
not a
finish.
constant.
So why? But why not? Why is time not a constant?
Because, like I said, it's an arbitrary system of measurement that we came up with here on Earth.
So let me ask you that: what's a second? Is a second a unit based off of a year, or is a second its own time?
So I think originally it was made for basically explaining the divisions of a day. So you have a 24-hour day, or from like daylight to nighttime to daylight again.
One rotation of the Earth.
Divided that into 24 sections. I don't know why 24, but 24 sections. And then within those 24, you split those into 60 minutes. I don't know why we chose 60, but we did. And out of those 60, we decided, well, let's divide that up by 60. So now we have seconds. Why we don't have a more metric version of time, I don't know. But I think that's probably the next real... Actually, I did that in high school. We were supposed to make some kind of invention. And I said, I want to make time into a metric form. And people thought it was a dumb idea. They're like, I don't understand. What's a, like, I don't know, like a fin. I don't know what I did for a second.
Everybody called Mark a communist.
Don't you remember that there's the Simpsons episode where Lisa joins Mensa? And he was like, take a look at our metric clock. And it only went up to 10. Like, it was...
Right.
But if I were to fly out to Jupiter right now and then come back 1 Earth year later, I'm still 1 Earth year older. The time didn't happen differently because I was somewhere else, or did it? And that's what the basis of some of these movies are based off of. Like the basis of The Navigator was based off of the fact that time actually worked different where he was at.
Traveling at a faster or something relativistic kind of thing.
It's because he was traveling at a certain speed.
Yeah, so that's why it changed. Like basically Earth, because he was traveling so close to the speed of light, he wasn't aging at the same rate as the rest of the Earth. And that's what the Navigator. How he went back in time, that one I can't really explain because the Navigator probably didn't really explain it that well as well.
Well, that's theoretical physics, that if you travel faster than the speed of light, they're going to go back in time.
And if you travel the exact speed of light, you can go into the future.
There you go.
I mean, it all makes perfect sense, right? If I go exactly the speed of light for just an arbitrary amount of time,
See,
time going the speed of lights.
See, my mom, she does like she puts on makeup and she puts on cream and she takes certain medicine
She
and
travels
she
to the
tries to she's
past.
trying to stay young. And I'm like, look, mom, I'm just being a sloth. I don't go anywhere. But I'm staying younger that way. Because if you go fast and you, actually, I don't know if that's actually how it works. I think it's some excuse.
So yeah, somehow time travel happened while I was in England, apparently, because that's
I was going to say we got way off topic here.
Well, when you went to England, what time did you leave and what time did you arrive? Because you're traveling
I
back.
did. I traveled back in time. No, I was actually in the future. It was just a very quick trip. It was only what time did I got there? Oh no, it was a long trip because I left at like noon and I got there at 10 p.m. But when I came back, I left at 7 a.m. and arrived at like 10 o'clock a.m.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think whenever I go from like Asia back to the U.S., I pass that daylight. Uh, oh, what is that called? The Greenwich or something? I don't know, something zone. So I actually go back in time when it's like the day before, or sometimes I actually arrive, the same hour that I left Japan on the exact same day.
Right, and that's all the evidence you need right there that time is an arbitrary thing because
Well,
Mark
I
didn't
understand.
really travel back in time.
I understand it's arbitrary from that perspective, but I do believe that there's theories out there that if you are on a different planet that has a different rotation around the sun, that not only does just the quote unquote year for that planet takes longer, but that actually if you stayed there for one Earth year and came back, that you would actually have aged like differently than the Earth did. I believe that theory does exist.
That would have to do with how fast you're traveling, I think. I don't think it has anything to do with where you are in location to one object. Like basically, if
Right.
you're like a million miles away and we waited the exact same amount of time and then we met at the exact middle, we would be the exact same age. But if
Right.
you're on a planet moving like, just 5 miles away, moving like 10, like 95% the speed of light, so you went around the sun like 10,000 times while and went around once, you would age differently than I would.
Although, if you want to get really technical, like
Oh, I do.
depending on the force of gravity on said planet, your body might age more
Well, it wouldn't
because
really age more per se. It would just
it would do
have
more
more. It would
damage.
do more damage to it.
Sure. So
I,
you would appear to be an older person, maybe.
Or you could have less gravity, and therefore you get
You're younger.
weak. No,
well,
you
time.
just get weak. Isn't that the problem they have with astronauts, even from like random trips like around the moon?
Right.
That they
Yeah,
come
their
back with
muscles
their
start
muscles start
atrophying.
atrophying, right?
Sure.
I think basically what we're finding out is that, mass is energy, and basically, when you travel closer to the speed of light, you gain more mass, or you require more energy to ascertain that speed. So I think basically time has to do with either uh, you could consider it mass, or you could just consider it energy. But either way, it's just basically the amount of mass or the amount of energy.
Well,
And mass is basically created with energy.
equals MC squared. That's exactly what that equation is
So,
like stating.
so I think when you travel like close to the speed of light, it's because your time is different because you either gain more mass or you use more energy.
So, do you think ever, and I don't mean in our lifetime, do you think anybody will ever figure out how to manipulate time to either go into the future or go into the past? And I don't mean from a, well, there could be, but if you went to the past, you would screw all this stuff. I don't mean from that type of perspective. I just mean, do you think the possibility could happen that at some point somebody could figure out a way to, if that equation is true, to build a machine that makes you go the speed of light and therefore you can go into the future or something of the sort?
The I think as far as we understand it, it would require so much energy that we most likely won't be able to create something even remotely close to time traveling or whatever. Because like even like to go close to the speed of light, you need basically just an incredible amount of energy that we wouldn't be able to produce.
And also, I feel like the universe is so big And the more we find out about how, water is sort of this abundant, resource throughout the galaxy and universe and things like that. Um, Somebody would have done it by now. Somebody would have got here, and we would know that other things exist out there.
Well,
Well,
just because
maybe
you know
we're
it
the
exists
most
doesn't mean that you
advanced.
bother going there.
We could be the most advanced things in the entire universe right now. I'm not saying that
It could.
that's probable. I'm just saying that it's possible that even though the universe could be that expansive, we could be the farthest ahead on the technology chain.
So you think that we live in a universe that is 13 billion years old? Our planet's only existed for 5 million years, but we're the most advanced.
Hey,
civilization out
we're the gifted kids, man. We're in the gifted class.
Well,
What can I say?
Somebody has to be first, Mike. So why not us?
So
Actually, here's my theory is
Well,
because they were talking about how like universes basically pop out of nothingness, right? Like they over a certain amount of time, at least with some physicists, they believe that some anomaly would cause universes to be created, and they talked about like just the right perfect conditions for our universe to exist. Because during the Big Bang, if it had a little bit more mass, it would collapse into itself. If it had less mass, it would just exploded, and they wouldn't basically form into basically galaxies or stars or universes, right? Because it has too much energy or not enough energy, right? And they're saying like, oh, we're just so fortunate that we had this perfect condition. We had the rules of physics as we have in this universe for us to exist. And I was thinking, to me, I'm thinking, but we might exist because we just happen to be the right one, unlike the previous ones that existed before us. So let's think of like a infinite universe, right?
okay,
You have, given an infinite amount of time, you have universes explode out of nothing, but they're too dense, so they collapse back into itself. And nobody would never know about these universes that used to exist because it collapsed in on itself. And a long time goes of nothingness still again. And then as time went, there's another universe that explodes, and it's too much, not enough mass, and it goes out into infinity. But it's so far away now that we'll never know about its existence. And this could have happened an infinite amount of time before this universe happened, and we're just living in this universe, so we think we're special. But we could be one out of the 2 billion universes that exist beforehand that weren't just the perfect condition. Sort of like how we say the probability of you existing is so small because you have like millions of sperm, and the possibility you reach your father's egg and your father's egg and all that other stuff, right? Sperm meaning the egg, just the right conditions. So you exist, but you exist not because of the chances being so slight that it actually happened. You exist because all those things did happen. For you guys follow what I'm saying?
I follow exactly what you're saying. I don't know what your point is with that, though.
I'm saying that
Mark-
Mike was saying like, whoa, how
Mark, I have
how
to.
do you
I
know
have
we're
to.
not the
Mark,
first
I have to
being-
cut. I have to cut you off, Mark. You're cutting in and out really poorly on my video.
yeah, it's really tinny, and I don't know what's going on there. Sound like a robot.
It does.
Maybe
Let me
that's
quit.
Mark is from an extra universe. He's a super robot sent here. But I get what Mark is saying. Mark is saying like, so maybe we're the exception. We're the one sperm that got to the egg.
And therefore, we could be the as I was saying, the most technologically advanced. Like I that's why I don't understand the point of what you were saying. I get it.
Right.
It's good. I just don't get where it was
No,
going.
mine's actually the opposite. Right?
Okay, anyways. Everybody, we are back. Technical difficulties, but we are back again. And Mark, you were trying to explain the fact that are one of many possibilities of times that this has happened with the too much mass or too little mass or blah blah blah.
Right.
And sperm.
And sperm. Lots of sperm.
So Mike was saying there's like with all the billions of universes and galaxies and planets where there might be life, what would make you think that we were the first or the most advanced or something like that,
I
right?
didn't say that I would think that we were. I said that we could be.
Possible. But good. But I want to even
I don't
diminish
think
those
it's
chances
likely.
even more by saying, with all the possible billions of universes, or even more than that, that could have existed way before us, before even our universe even came into creation, I think our chances are almost zero.
I didn't say that it was probable that we were, but I'm just saying, like, because the argument was that if time, because I asked if time travel, you think it would be possible, if we'd ever be able to build a machine, if the theory does hold true that you can travel the speed of light and therefore go back in time. And your answer was no, because other people would have done it by now, which
That was my answer.
or your answer, yeah. And whereas my rebuttal was, but maybe we're the most advanced so
Right.
far that's existed.
Essentially, I think Mark just long-windedly said he agrees with me.
Right. Of course, to go with Jeff's answer, to agree with Jeff, because I never like to choose a side, is that Mike, you know of England, right?
No, I've never heard of it. Is
uh,
that a
but
universe?
and so just because you know it exists doesn't mean that you're gonna bother going there. Like, there's plenty of places in Michigan that I would never bother to go, but I know of it.
Well,
Okay.
and
It just, you have a very advanced civilization that says, like, screw it, I'm not going there.
I mean, I would say that maybe we only learned how to go forward in time as well, and therefore we'd never know unless somebody in the past did it. But I would guess at some point throughout history, if you could make something that let you go forward in time, you'd probably make something that could go back in time, and therefore you could just go forward in time until that was invented, and then use that to go back in time anyways, right? I mean, or maybe that's the impossible part. Maybe it's possible to go forward in time, but never possible to go back in time.
I also like the theory that all time is all happening at one instance of time, and us flowing through, I don't know, whatever this is just one interpretation of what's happening.
So, I guess in theory, could you consider being cryogenically frozen time travel?
No, I don't think so.
From the perspective of the individual who is cryogenically frozen. Is that time travel or not?
When you sleep, is it time traveling? Because
Yeah, but I'm still aging while I'm sleeping.
That's different.
I'm
That is
still,
different.
my body's still working, my heart's still beating,
All right.
I'm still aging. Whereas
Well-
if I'm cryogenically frozen, in theory, nothing's happening. You're held in a state of suspension until you're unfrozen, cryogenically unfrozen. I don't know what the term is.
And when you want to slow down like particles or things like that, you cool them down as cold as you can get them, because that just slows down time essentially. I mean, again, this goes back to time being an arbitrary number, but that particle that's going through, almost 0 Kelvin temperatures is aging, quote unquote, a lot slower than. So if you want it, I mean, it depends on your definition of, what you mean when you ask if you're cryogenically frozen. Are you, essentially slowing down time? Because I guess in a way, once they figure out, this, there's a lot of ifs in here, but if they do figure out, how to cure cancer 100 years from now, and you're cryogenically frozen, and then come out of that to cure your cancer, and you're good to go for another 10 years, naturally you're never going to live for 200 years. But if you're frozen for that 100 years, and then they figure out a way to save you for 10 more years, I guess essentially,
I mean, it's a lot to
broad definition,
it's a lot to think about, because that could be a way to travel into the future. Whereas you could never really travel into the past with that method, unless it's the Futurama method, whereas the Big Bang happens again and everything rolls back over.
Let me ask you this then. If given the opportunity, and you can only choose one, to go into, let's say, an indeterminate amount of time in the future, or any time in the past, but you only have, if you go back 30 years, there's no going back to the present time except for waiting out those 30 years. Or you go into the future, there's no way for you to get back, to this time.
Well,
Which one would you choose? Would you go back in time, or would you go into the future?
well, but then you bring in the other part of the conundrum, whereas if I went into the past and changed the face of history,
Yeah, that paradox.
right, like what
Well,
would
let's
be
say-
the
let's say
outcome?
that it doesn't create any paradox. Basically, when you go back into both situations, you're going to a parallel universe, basically exactly the exact same as present day that we have, but the only difference is the timeline that you changed.
So,
So so if you kill someone that becomes your mother, then it doesn't matter.
so
You're still-
in theory, I'm still living the life that I have lived,
Right.
but these other people, which you could look at as not me in the past, but somebody who lived a similar life to me that I could alter, essentially.
Basically, yeah.
I'd probably go into the future if I had to choose, if that was the way to do it, because I would still always, I don't know, because you could never go back and really change anything then, because all that stuff actually still happened to me, no matter what. And if you're saying it doesn't change anything, then it doesn't change anything in the future.
So I guess it doesn't really matter. Well,
Well, it's not that it
Okay.
doesn't really matter to those people, though,
right.
but it doesn't necessarily matter to me. And therefore, is this, how selfish am I? Am I doing this for my own gain, or am I doing this for the gain of society?
Well, I mean, like if you go back in the past and let's say something horrific happened, but you prevented it, then it wouldn't be horrific to you, so it wouldn't matter to you.
But
to
it
go
would
back.
be horrific to me because it still happened to me. Like you said, it doesn't change me.
Right.
So it's like if I go back and change 9/11 and make it so 9/11 didn't happen, for that sect of that paradox that's going
Right.
on, that doesn't
really-
9/11 doesn't happen for them. However, it still happened for me. I still remember it, and in my
Well,
life and everything that
but-
I'm built on, that still has
You still
happened.
saved thousands of lives, though.
Well, I'm saving thousands of those lives. The lives that I know
Others.
still are gone. Like, because you
But
said it doesn't
but I
change
was
anything.
I was thinking, try to think bigger picture when you talk about go to the past. Try, think about going back to like stopping like Hitler. You know what I mean? Like that's a lot more lives, and it has zero effect on how you are right now.
Well, and I guess the question isn't so much going. I mean, you can go back in the past and become like some kind of hero for stopping Hitler or something that people would never know about, or you could just go back and, back in time and change something that happened that maybe you don't like, or go back and, see what life was like in the 1800s, or go back in time or whatever. Just
Go
to
live
experience
amongst
that
the
time.
dinosaurs and then
know
realize what
what-
a horrible mistake
I
that
don't know what
was.
Like we talk about like how music was really good in the 90s,
Mhm.
and that's up to debate, but like I don't know if I would want to relive my life in the 90s.
But you wouldn't relive your life because you'd still be you now. You'd still be a 34-year-old dude
I
in
don't
the
know if I would want
90s.
to relive through the 90s. per
You
se.
you'd then become my neighbor Tom, who is constantly like trapped in like hippie days. Like he's got a Rush tattoo like this big across like on his calf. Like he's totally, he's a little bit older than me, but he was totally into Rush. Got this huge tattoo. So you would be like the 90s version of him.
Right.
I love
Good guy, by the way. I like Tom.
time travel talk because it makes you think about so many different things. Because in this scenario is one I never really thought about before. I always think of different time travel movies and the way that they introduce time travel. Is it that I go back in time and change the past and therefore I no longer exist, or I go back in time and change the past and it changed my life? So when I go back, I now have that life again. Whereas this is the one where you go back in time and you can change whatever the hell you want and it will affect you zero.
Well, and I'm on the opposite side of the coin. I'd much rather go into the future because I'm far too curious not to. Like,
How far into the future would you go, though?
well, I don't know. I that would be the biggest question for me. Like, this wouldn't even be an issue of past or future. It would definitely be future, but I'm not sure how far because 5 billion years from now, our sun is going to expand to the point where the Earth burns horrible.
But we might have solved that problem by then, if we still exist.
We
Right,
we
if we still exist,
we
that's right.
contained the sun somehow.
So, right, well, we could have moved off planet, but if I pop up 4 million years in the future and, no one's left here, I'm the only one, we've all moved off to,
It ends up being Wally. Like
That's
100
this was
billion
like
light years away from here, not by myself. That's a bad situation to find yourself.
that Futurama episode was so good because it talked about like all of this stuff. Like when they have the time machine, it's so awesome.
in the year 4141.
Yep, yep, that's the one.